There are moments in life that arrive quietly, almost unnoticed, yet they carry the weight to shape everything that follows. They do not announce themselves with thunder or ceremony. They happen in small rooms, under tired roofs, spoken by ordinary voices that never realize how powerful their words will become. This story begins with one of those moments. A boy, a guitar held together by love more than wood, and a sentence spoken by an adult who believed he was offering wisdom. A sentence that would echo across decades, across continents, across history itself. In the late 1950s, in Kingston, Jamaica, the air carried the sounds of survival. Radios crackled with borrowed hope. Streets hummed with struggle. In neighborhoods like Trenchtown, children learned early that dreaming was considered dangerous. Hunger was real. Opportunity was rare. And art was often treated as a luxury reserved for people who already had enough to eat. Inside a modest primary school, a 13-year-old boy waited outside an office. His name was Robert Nestor Marley, though very few people called him that. He was barefoot, not by choice, but by circumstance. His uniform had been stitched and restitched by hands that loved him fiercely but had little else to give. The guitar resting against his leg was old, scratched, and imperfect. Yet it gleamed because it mattered. It was the one thing in his life that felt like a promise. Music was not a hobby to him. It was not a distraction. It was language. It was breath. It was how he made sense of a world that often seemed determined to remind him of what he did not have. The man who stood before him did not see any of that. Mr. Winston Thompson was a teacher who believed deeply in structure. He had spent nearly 2 decades in classrooms, watching children pass through like seasons. He believed that discipline was kindness, that realism was mercy, and that preparing children for hardship meant stripping them of illusions before life did it more cruelly. In his mind, he was not being harsh. He was being responsible. He saw a poor boy wasting time. When he spoke, his words were firm, measured, and certain. Music, he said, could not be a future. Music could not pay rent. Music could not feed a family. Music was a dream, and dreams in his experience starved people long before they saved them. The boy listened. His fingers tightened around the neck of the guitar. He tried to explain, not with arrogance, but with quiet conviction. He spoke about finishing his work. He spoke about practice. He spoke about how music mattered. The response was swift and final. Music will not feed you. Those words were not shouted. They did not need to be. They landed heavy enough on their own. They carried judgment, fear, and a lifetime of disappointment disguised as advice. They carried the unspoken belief that some children were meant to survive, not to soar. The boy did not cry. He did not argue further. He stood, picked up his guitar, and walked away with something far heavier than the instrument in his hands. He carried doubt. He carried anger. He carried a challenge he did not yet know would define him. That evening, he returned home to his mother, Cedella Booker, a woman who understood hardship intimately and hope stubbornly. When he told her what had happened, she did not dismiss the teacher as cruel, nor did she romanticize struggle. She spoke gently, the way people do when they are offering truth, rather than comfort. Some people, she told him, only see the next meal. Some people believe survival is the highest goal, but there is more than survival. There is purpose, there is calling, and for her son, music was not an escape from life. It was how he would speak to it. He held on to those words as tightly as he held on to his guitar. Years passed. then decades. The boy from Trenchtown did not become a carpenter. He did not become a welder. He did not choose the safe path others insisted was the only responsible option. He chose the uncertain one, the one filled with rejection, hunger, ridicule, and nights when the very sentence spoken to him in that school office echoed in his mind. Music will not feed you. Every time doors closed, that sentence returned. Every time money was short, it whispered again. Every time someone laughed at the idea that a poor Jamaican boy could matter to the world, it stood waiting. Instead of breaking him, it sharpened him. He practiced harder. He listened deeper. He wrote songs, not just to entertain, but to speak truth. His music carried pain, resistance, love, faith, and fire. Slowly, almost impossibly, the world began to listen. By the late 1970s, the same voice that had once been dismissed as impractical had become unignorable. His name was known far beyond Jamaica. His songs crossed borders and languages. His presence carried authority without arrogance, conviction without cruelty. In 1978, at the One Love Peace concert in Kingston, more than 35,000 people stood together in a country torn by political violence. On that stage stood Bob Marley, no longer the barefoot boy, but not far removed from him either. He brought rival leaders together. He asked a wounded nation to imagine unity. He did something politics had failed to do. He made people believe, even if only for a moment. After the lights dimmed and the crowd dispersed, he did something few expected. He walked the streets alone, not because he was reckless, but because he refused to disconnect from where he came from. Fame had not erased his memory of hunger. Success had not insulated him from suffering. It was in one of those quiet hours, moving through an alley, that he saw a man curled on cardboard, thin, weathered, forgotten. Something about the face stopped him. He looked closer. Recognition arrived like a shock. It was Winston Thompson. The man who had once stood over him with certainty now lay on the ground with nothing. The teacher who warned him about starvation was starving. The voice of practicality had been swallowed by the very reality he believed he understood so well. Bob did not speak immediately. He did not feel triumph. He did not feel satisfaction. What he felt was sorrow. He knelt. When the older man opened his eyes, confusion gave way to recognition, and recognition collapsed into shame. Years had taken everything from him. The school had closed. His position disappeared. His marriage fell apart. Alcohol filled the space where purpose once lived. And then even that was not enough to keep him afloat. He had become invisible. Bob did not ask for apologies. He did not remind him of what was said. He asked a simple question. When was the last time you ate? The answer came reluctantly. Too long ago. What happened next was not charity. It was grace. Bob helped him stand. He took him somewhere warm. He paid for a room. He bought food. He sat with him while he ate, not as a benefactor, but as a fellow human being. The man who had once tried to crush a dream now wept over a plate of food provided by the dream he tried to destroy. "Why are you helping me?" the man asked. The answer was not poetic. It was honest. "Because you were my teacher." Bob explained that the lesson he learned had not been the one intended. He learned that fear often dresses itself as wisdom, that people who abandon their own dreams sometimes try to save others by making them do the same, and that proving someone wrong is not about revenge, but about refusing to become what hurt you. He did not frame success as victory over failure. He framed compassion as responsibility. In the days that followed, Bob did something even more unexpected. He did not simply rescue the man and move on. He offered him work, not prestige, not authority, work with dignity. At the Trenchtown Community Centre, a place quietly funded to give children access to music, Mr. Thompson began again. He cleaned floors. He fixed broken chairs. He repaired instruments. He listened. He watched children stand where Bob once stood. He heard songs forming where silence once lived. He saw dreams beginning where fear used to sit, and something changed in him. One afternoon, a young girl approached him with a question. She had been told, like Bob once was, that music was a waste of time, that it was impractical, that it would lead nowhere. This time, the answer was different. He told her the truth, about the years he spent discouraging children, about the life that followed, about the boy he once doubted who became a voice for millions. He did not speak as an authority. He spoke as a warning. Do not listen to people who are afraid, he told her. Sing if it lives in you. Sing because that is how you become who you are meant to be. For the first time in decades, he felt useful in a way that mattered. He lived another 15 years. Years he would not have had without intervention. Years spent quietly undoing harm, one conversation at a time. When his health failed, he wrote a letter. Not to the world, to the family of the man who saved him. After his death, the letter reached Ziggy Marley. The words were simple, heavy, and unfiltered. He admitted his mistakes. He acknowledged his cruelty. He thanked Bob Marley, not just for success, but for mercy. That letter now rests in the Bob Marley Museum in Kingston, not as a symbol of shame, but as a reminder that greatness is not only measured by what someone achieves, but by who they choose to lift along the way. The community center still stands. Children still learn music there. They still hear the story of a teacher who was wrong, a student who refused to quit, and a kindness that fed far more than hunger.